Secure your Elixir apps with Paraxial IO. From code analysis and bot defense to dependency checks, they've got you covered. Elixir first design with GitHub integration. Elevate your security at Paraxial.io. Testing. What's up? I'm Jacob Blitzo, your Elixir mentor, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Elixir Mentor podcast. This is where we discuss everything related to Elixir, from interviews with enthusiasts, pioneers in the community, to innovative projects and libraries shaping Elixir's future. Today, I'm pretty excited to have Henry Saint-Juste with us. He's a mobile architect at NetJets who specializes in rapid prototyping and moving fast to validate ideas before committing to tech stacks. And I also want to say, I think I've known Henry, at least like digitally, for probably almost 10 years. Is it close to that? It's got to be close. So welcome, man.
Yeah, I think so. Thank you. Appreciate it. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah. Do you want to give just a brief introduction, like your history and like kind of what steps you took to end up where you are right now?
Yeah, sure. Before that, let me unplug this. All right. As you stated, Jacob, my name is Henry Saint-Just. My title at NetJets is Solutions Architect, but I am a mobile architect, a thought leader, a speaker, and I've been at NetJets now for about 4 years. Before that, I was into native mobile development. So using Swift, Objective-C, and Java to build applications. So I started about in 2012 building applications, building games for the iOS platform. And the first couple videos I started consuming was videos from you, Jacob, when you were with a previous startup or firm, just teaching people how to code online. That's my beginning.
Yeah, that's wild. That was kind of my beginning too with mobile development because DevSlopes was my first like official software gig. And yeah, so we've known each other a while and it's got to be, you said 2012?
Yeah. 2012, I started building like games and reading books. I think I landed on DevSlopes about around like 2013, 2014.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
That sounds right. Yeah, because I feel like I'm just about to hit that 10-year marker.
nice.
It ages me, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I started in iOS and then I moved to mostly back end and I swore off ever making tutorials again. And now I make tutorials for free on YouTube. So,
Yeah.
you know, it's
Nice.
kind of it's kind of funny how it works out. Um, I will say, so I've always been a huge fan. I love your content. And I love that you just started like speaking at conferences and things. I think that's awesome. And I also have always loved your Instagram handle, the app doctor. I think that's
Thank you.
it's a great handle for a mobile dev. Um, so you're my second official guest that isn't just a strictly Elixir person. So of
Okay.
course we're going to try to make you drink the Kool-Aid, but we're
No,
also
I'll spit it out.
I think like our conversation I think is going to be really good and I think it's like it applies to everyone that is building software, right? We're talking about like rapid prototyping versus maybe choosing a tech stack too soon before you have proof of concept. And I think
Mhm.
it's important, especially when you're starting to build a product and you have to build an MVP and there's all sorts of things because you and I both know when you're building a giant platform, it's really easy to never be ready because you have to build out, 1,000 features before you can release it. But that also, you're not testing it with your future clients or anyone that you're actually writing your software for. So,
Sure. Yep.
so what does proof of concept, like over perfection, mean to you? Like when I say that?
Yeah, yeah. So I like to break down, I guess, my title at NetJets, so solutions architect. Where I sit in between. I'm like a liaison between the business side and the engineering teams. And usually I try to stay
That's like a really nice way to say you speak nerd and normal person,
the
right?
normal person.
Yeah.
Yep, yep. And typically, um, with point of proof of concepts or MVPs, right? I create those and try to stay at least in my mind, it's 10 steps ahead of the engineering teams, or in the world of engineering or agile, I would say between 2 to 3 sprints ahead of the engineering teams, um, to be able to build these rapid prototypes. So the business may say, okay, we want to integrate this system, we want to leverage current data, and we want to push data to this other system. So then I go off and I create these proof of concepts. Okay, what kind of scalability would we need? And talking with the stakeholders and getting the requirements of what the system will look like. I know when to focus on the UI piece of it or on the infrastructure piece of it, and that's where I would figure out, okay, where am I going to spend most of my time? So looking at, okay, how will this system current integrate with our current system? Because it's never really the dream um, system you're working with to be able to start greenfield. You are gonna work with some sort of like legacy system. So okay, like are we gonna get data from this system to another system? How do we do that in a automated fashion? How do we do the initial seed of that data? And then as data change come in, how do we hook to the change events and push the data to this type of system now? And then how do we um, push out notifications to different parts of the system that may be listening to this? So just staying 2 to 3 sprints ahead, figuring out what that looks like. So that way, when the engineering teams comes to pick up my solution design or diagrams, they can move fast, and at that time they can pick a tech stack that's right for them.
And I'm curious, taking your mindset versus like traditional development approaches, how would you say like you differ as you're doing proof of concepts or, kind of MVP features?
Yeah, so I didn't really do the traditional like 4 year degree in a college setting. I did 2 years or 3 years, and then I started consulting into the engineering space. And then most of that has been like self-taught after that. So um, the mindset I bring to it is curiosity, right? I'm always learning, always looking to evolve. So when something comes to me, I look at it from a different lens, as somebody who was taught to learn, and taught with a curriculum. Me, I sort of made up my own curriculum. I'm going to learn about this, going to learn about that. So when these problem sets comes to me, I'm able to look at it from a different lens and to be able to find different solutions towards it.
Yeah. I like that. You and I are pretty similar with that. Like I did the traditional BS degree, but in civil engineering, and then I ended up being self-taught for programming. And it's just one of those things, as long as you're always willing to learn. Well, like one, even if you went and got your typical CS degree, right? You don't start learning until you get that first real job where you're working on a team where you have to use Git, you have, merge conflicts, and you have, all these new nuances to deal with, right? That's how you
Yeah.
start becoming a good developer. But yeah, I would say curiosity drove me because I always wanted to build something and I didn't know how to build it, but I sure as hell was going to figure out how to build it. And for some reason, it always pans out. Like I've always figured out how to build a piece of software. And I think
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it might be slower than a lot of people's approaches. Like a lot of beat my head on the desk moments, but I also think you learn a lot in that whole process.
Yeah, I would say that as well. Something that I was looking into was like how build systems work. And I beat my head on it for about a whole month, working, late at night, trying to understand different build systems, compiling code. But then, like at the time when the product came, so I can like look at a different POC or a new POC, I had already like learned and figured out everything that I need to. So then that made like providing that proof of concept like so much faster,
Hmm.
just because
Yeah.
I was curious about that like 3 or 4 months ago. So
Yeah. Well, everything that you learn just slowly builds, right? And it becomes your
yeah,
arsenal of tools that you can use. I just had on Elliot Clark. I can't remember if it was last week or the week before. My days go, but he worked for, let's see, I believe Microsoft,
and
and I don't
Facebook.
know. Yeah, Facebook. I think it was Facebook, and he is developing a really cool platform for like deploying and just spinning up your databases and everything. And I love products like that because it just like speeds up your deployment. Like right now, I always have like my Docker scripts and my build scripts. And so whenever I start a new small project, you have to go through the tedious tasks of setting up your development environment essentially. And I love
Yeah,
that he's like using his product will kind of, it removes that. So it kind of just speeds up. You can just work on the cool stuff and not worry about the infrastructure as much.
yeah. I think I followed when you posted about Elliot Clark. The company is called Batteries Included, right?
Yeah,
Um,
yep.
so I like that concept just because when I was looking at build systems, one or compilers um, for JavaScript, but one of the ones I was looking at was Rollup, and Rollup kind of works sort of like batteries included. Like you have these different like plugins that you can just like pull in, and you can build your own plugins. Um, and I just like the concept of that.
Yeah, it's nice. I like it a lot. Um, all right. So, real life, you work at NetJets. And
Mhm.
if anyone follows you on social media, you just always looking like a baller because you have pretty awesome perks there. He- For anyone that doesn't know, Henry gets access to a private jet once in a while and can go on vacations or business trips, but you do it in fashion, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so one of the biggest perks working for NetJets. So for anyone who doesn't know, NetJets is a subsidiary of Berkshire Hathaway. They're the private, or yeah, they're the largest private aviation company, and they have the largest fleet. I think we're around 1,000 planes now, or jets. But one of the perks is the ferry program. So essentially, if I can't, I'm not an owner, but if I'm already going somewhere, let's say my family and I were going to New York in about 2 weeks. I already booked my stay, already booked my flight. Um, but on that day that I'm flying, or that week, if I see there is a jet that's being repositioned, coming from Columbus, Ohio to New York, then I can get on that flight and go. But yeah, it's a great perk. I'm always looking to see where's my next destination going to be, and it always works out for me. So
That's
when I have
awesome.
something, yeah, when I have like a vacation or some business or a conference I need to go speak to, it always aligns. There's always a flight going where I'm headed.
That's amazing. This was meant to be, right?
Yeah. I think to date, I've been at NetJets now for about 4 years, and I've probably been on like 25 jet flights. Most people have been at NetJets for 19, 20 years, and they haven't been on one. Um, and
Dang, they're dropping the
because
ball.
yeah, it's like one of the biggest perks.
Yeah, for sure. So like if they're repositioning a plane, is it normally like a one-way ticket at that point and you have to fly back? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I
Well, at
think
least
that's
it's
what
a
people
cool
are scared
flight
of.
one
Yeah,
way,
yeah. They
right?
don't, yeah. Most people are scared of getting stranded somewhere else. So,
Yeah. Well, guys, you can just do it like the rest of us and book your flight.
yep.
I'm gonna have to look for job openings over there just to get the private jet perk. I love it.
Yeah, man. Yep.
Um, so can you? I know you discussed like one of your POCs at NetJets ended up turning into like a major app at that company, right? Can you kind of
Mhm.
walk us through what features that is and like what your workflow was when that happened and what it was exactly, what it ended up doing?
Yeah, so what we are trying to do is deliver features across different omni channels, whether it be a web application or a mobile application. We want to build it once and deploy it anywhere. So I was looking at different tech stacks to be able to figure all that out. But then we started at the API layer first, right? So when you are interacting with a company's API, let's say the GitHub API. You can interact with it without any UI. You can use Postman. You can use the REST client and WebStorm. You can use the terminal to make a curl command to it. And it's basically UI agnostic, right? We don't really care about the UI. So our approach was okay, let's focus on the API layer. Let's make that reusable across different channels. And then dive a little bit deeper into okay, what would that look like if we had a component? Can we reuse that same component across web and mobile? And then that's when I started looking into build systems. You know, how do they work? How can we compile code that can work, um, that can be agnostic, right? So whether it's on a web application or a mobile application, it's going to render the same way. And it may even take advantage of native features and only compile that and add it to the source code where it's going to run on. Spent a lot of time looking at that. Looked at Metro, looked at Rollup, um, SWC, which is written in Rust. Looked at Webpack, and went through each one of them and looked at their strong points. Around the same time, I was also looking at Expo. So Expo was built by the Expo team. Evan Bacon is a huge contributor to that, but it allowed me to do just that. And then it's batteries included. So I was able to build on top of that framework to be able to deliver what we call CODA, code once, deploy anywhere. And that's what we're using now for the mobile application. The mobile application right now, I think in the beginning of this year we released it on the App Store, and it's Android, iOS, and then we're also delivering for the web shortly.
Nice. And it's all one code base,
Yeah, yeah, one code
which
base.
like so there's a big strong point like why a lot of people love like Phoenix and Live View with Elixir
Hmm.
because one, it's just like real time, very responsive, everything's over sockets. It all works together. And so if you're an Elixir backend developer, it's very easy to make, your web application as well because it's you're writing in Elixir for the most part. And I used to be like kind of against, you know, having everything under one umbrella essentially because I was like, well, what if you want to just change one technology? And the reality of the situation is you rarely are doing that unless it's a huge rewrite. So you're rewriting
Hmm.
everything anyways. So, especially in today's age, I think like our teams were stripped back to be as efficient as possible without like too much bloat. Because I like just the startup life, it's you're you're hustling and you got to get a lot done, right? On small teams. So only worrying about a single code base makes life a lot easier. And that I think like did you say you're using React Native?
Yep, 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 yep.
Yeah, which is why like all these natives like frameworks are so popular and like they're starting. I remember like when I was just iOS native developer, all that stuff wasn't, it was fine, it would work, but it wasn't great. And I feel like
Yeah.
that barrier has faded since, over the last like 6 years.
Yeah, it faded somewhat. There are some different frameworks out there um, that claims they can do that, but it really doesn't work well. So like Flutter being one of them, Native Script, Ionic, Xamarin, like, and Cordova. Cordova, they're not even around anymore.
I was like,
I
those
think
are
the
all names
Xamarin
that
team
I
took
know,
over.
and I haven't touched that stuff in years.
Yep, yep. But React Native, I think where the code once deploy anywhere concept fails for the other frameworks, React Native held true for us. So
Mm. Yeah, that's good. Now, one thing, so I'm gonna always just keep pushing you till you're intrigued to test out like Phoenix and Elixir. A
yeah,
project that you'll want to keep an eye on. Brian Cardarella from Dockyard. He is working on Live View Native, and so it'll essentially be, Elixir in, iOS and mobile apps, same kind of concept.
gotcha.
And I'm gonna be booking him. He's been a guest before, but I'm bringing him back. I don't know when it will be, but I know he's doing a lot of work on the DOM to make it better for like the mobile side of things, and it's
Gotcha.
exciting. I always enjoy watching all of Dockyard's progress with their open source projects. It's cool.
Okay, okay, nice. So I have used Elixir before.
Yeah. Oh my
So
gosh.
back in 2019 or late 2018 to early 2019, I was working at a startup called Prescribed Fit, and they worked on um, remote patient monitoring. So
Okay.
essentially, I helped them build they had a mobile application, but it was all like web views, and communicating through the web views via JavaScript, JavaScript protocol to be able to pass data back and forth from the native to the web. Um, but all their backends were in Elixir or Phoenix, um, and they had like what do they call it? Plugs, or yeah, they have plugs,
Yeah,
the
plugs.
different
It's kind of like
modules.
it's
Yeah.
like kind of like middleware.
Yep, yep,
Yeah,
yep.
yeah.
So I work closely with the lead backend engineer to be able to get onboarded to the application. So I never wrote code, but I saw code and I got in some pull requests. But I was mainly on the front end aspect
So
of
I'm
things.
curious, like, how did you feel about reading it when you were reading Elixir? Did you just understand it, or did you find it confusing?
Yeah, it's been a while now, but at the time, I don't think it was confusing at all.
Yeah,
I
see,
was
that's
able
why
to
it's so
follow
good.
most of it. Yeah.
It just makes sense. Everyone can just read it. Like, even if you're like not really sure how to write it, you can understand like the flow of things.
hmm
Like I think once you like wrap your head around like pattern matching and the pipe operator, then you're like golden. Then the rest,
Yeah.
then you know how it works.
Yep. 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 I also wanted to circle back on what you mentioned earlier about so like when you're standing up a new application, you have these different like scaffolding that you have to do to build up your environment, whether it be like a new application or an existing application. There are some work you have to do, groundwork, when you're building these things. And one of the stuff I started looking at for the engineering teams that and support is platform engineering as a practice, and that's like building different CLI tools and different commands to be able to scaffold an application to be able to, let's say they're going to create something that's like very repetitive. They create a file, they have a constructor, it defaults out the object, and then you have like a few like methods that are always there. So like you can
Mhm.
create like some sort of like a CLI command to be able to like to write that. So now the user, the end user, which is the engineers, they're going to run that command and just have that like scaffolded, either like that file or the entire project. And I like to coin this as, speed of thought. I don't want to have to think about something that I'm doing that's very repetitive. Like if I run a command, I should be able to have it as I'm thinking about it, it should be able to like create it. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, so
I agree. Zach Daniels, another guest I'm going to be having back on, he created a pretty awesome tool called Igniter, and it's kind of like a code generator. And like, so if you create any kind of framework or SDK or whatever you want to call it, dependency, you can actually use Igniter as an installer, and you can go and edit modules inside of your project. So it's like it's really awesome when dependencies and frameworks use it, because then installing stuff is so easy. You don't even have to go into your config files. It'll usually just add it. And
mhm,
for a while, when I was doing like consultancy work, you always want cool projects, right? Like I want that big app to build for some company that I can make $500,000 off of over like a year and a half span. But the truth of it was I got a lot of website work. And I hated it. It was the same thing, right? Like I found that setting up a project just for a simple, like static, sometimes a little more complicated than that, but like the overall setup and deployment of a website almost took longer than creating the website.
yeah,
And I ended up writing like a kind of a website hosting platform. So it's kind of like a single Phoenix application, and then I would host and route through specific directories for that website. So just, and it's still up to date. Like I have websites hosted on it, and I wrote so many like code generation template
mhm,
scripts that I could just be like, okay, this is our new domain. This is the theme they want to use, blah, blah, blah. And then boom, skeleton project with like a basic theme. And then we would go in and do the minor tweaks and changes to make it like fit their copy and their branding.
gotcha.
But like, yeah, I don't know. You're not a real software engineer unless you automate your life when you do the same thing over and over.
Yep, yep. And I've heard it said, software engineers are lazy just because they like
Dude,
to automate stuff.
I will
So,
tell I'll tell everyone I am like I'm like one of the laziest people ever. And then people be like, "Yeah, but you're like working all the time." It's like, "Well, I don't want to. I just have things to get done, but like all the silly tasks, they're automated. Like
yeah,
if I'm on my terminal doing the same thing over and over, like if I had to hit enter like 3 times, no, I'm making a bash script at least to do
yeah,
that. And then I forget all the commands. Like I don't I
yeah,
don't remember,
yeah,
but
me too.
I have all my custom scripts that I run, and I'm like, "Oh shit. How do I
Yep,
set
yep,
my SSH key for GitHub?"
yep, yep. My favorite thing to do is I cat out my bash script or my ZSH because I have aliases as well set to like
uh,
different commands I would run, and then I would grep piped it into the grep command. I'm like, okay, cool. What am I looking for? Okay, this is it. I need to update this one. So yeah.
nice. Yeah.
Going back
Yeah.
to your templates, I took a look at Hired Guns app because when I looked at your website, I'm like, oh, this is a great website for the Elixir Mentor. And then on the bottom it says it's powered by HGA.
HGA. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so then I clicked on that. I'm like, okay, cool. What's HGA? It's Hired Gun Apps. And then I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And then I started looking at the architecture. It talked about being multi-tenant, where you can have a lot of different applications hosted into one container, and then the domain routing and everything would be done internally to be able to like facilitate going into that application, but also um, being secure, right? Having data integrity, so that way it's only isolated to that one application. So
Mhm.
I thought that was pretty neat. I'm like, oh, look at all these templates he created. That
Yeah.
was pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, like, so HGA, like, when we were trying to like scale it, we're like, okay, well, consultancy, I'm not a good salesman, so that's not going to be it. So then we kind of spun up a thing called SiteBrains, and SiteBrains is like that dynamic SEO concept, right? So we're taking screenshots of other cool websites and creating backlinks to them. So, and then our content gets updated more regularly, and that
Mhm.
boosts SEO programmatically. So I don't have to write blog posts every week to have, activity and updates on my website. So that was kind of the
Gotcha.
plan. That was the plan with that one. But yeah. Yeah, it's a fun little project. I need to there's like I want to do a lot of cool nerdy stuff under the hood to make it better,
Hmm.
but no one will ever know how cool my website hosting platform is because it still works the same way on the outside.
Okay,
But
okay.
there's like right now, I like dynamically route live views and things inside based off, whatever domains coming through Nginx. But it's a little, basically, it's a little fragile because it depends on uh, like directory, like what is the word I'm looking for? Basically, my directories all need to be, in a specific format, and the word I'm looking for is going to hit me once we leave this conversation. But so it's a little like, so let's say I have hiredgunapps.com. I like code generate directories and templates and everything, and then like it's going to sit in a directory like all lowercase, no spaces, no dots, but it'd be hired gun apps com essentially. So
Mm,
like there's like fragility, like if a developer was in there and like renamed things, it would break. But
gotcha.
what I want to do is I want to use a ETS table, which is I'm it's basically kind of like a key value dictionary, but it's like onboard memory. It's kind of the only state you have using Erlang or like the Beam VM, but it's like it's built in, right? And so I want to write a task that goes through my directory like hierarchy and then dynamically create the routes at compile.
Mm,
And then so if names are ever changed, it's updated.
yep, yep,
But
yep. Yeah, that makes
little
sense.
nerdy stuff. And actually funny, like Dockyard is working on like a CMS project where they're kind of doing the same exact thing. And so I kind of saw what they were doing and thought that idea was awesome. It's like
Nice.
I need to bring that into my life, which I'll tell everyone, guys. If you don't contribute to open source, at least read through open source projects that are cool that you're interested in, because you learn so many cool new techniques or ways of thinking or solving problems. And like dynamic routing with the ETS table is just an example. Like I would have never thought about that until I saw it in practice.
Yeah, just to piggyback on that, like most of the stuff that I've been able to come up with and build internally, it's looking through open source projects, right? So I always have something I can like look back on my file and be like, okay, cool, I've done this before, or I've seen this before. Now let's incorporate it here and change this and change that. Um, but yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, no idea is original, so just steal them and run with it.
yeah, yeah.
That's funny. I feel like so what was the company you said you were working with Elixir?
Prescribed fit.
Was that when that so that was like pretty much the last time we talked, right? Cuz was that during the same time frame that I was working on Perfect Form?
I
Or
think so. Yeah,
at least really close, right?
yeah,
Cuz I
yep, yep.
remember you were like, "Hey, I'm doing something similar. Is there any way we could like I know we wanted to like work prescribed fitness into perfect form somehow.
Yep,
And
yep.
at least for getting um, workout
Yeah,
plans or
so
whatever. Yeah, yeah.
yep, yep. That's what it was. Yeah, workout plan. So Prescribed Fit, for those who don't know, Prescribed Fit is a health startup here in Columbus, Ohio, and it deals with remote patient monitoring. So you have the patients, and the patients are then onboarded to a physical, what is it, a physician. And that physician, instead of, because when you think about the way that traditional healthcare works, um, I would have to like feel something's off, then to like schedule something outside of my yearly or semi-annually visits.
Hmm.
But this flips the whole concept on its head, where the physician is now looking at your biometric reading. So whether it be your weight, um, your um, your oxygen level, all that information is fed through a mobile application that's relaying that information from the mobile app via Bluetooth. And then from there, when it gets to your mobile app, you get to approve it and it goes to the physician. Now the physician is like looking at it. Okay, now when they see any erect, anything that's not like regular with your health, then you can schedule a time to go see them. So that was the whole concept. And sometimes they would do like care plans, and these care plans would have like workouts. And that's when I reached out to you, Jacob, to talk about workouts that could be assigned via an API. You call into the API, you get the workouts, and these workouts are going to be for these kind of patients or these kind of patients. But yeah, yeah.
I remember I never even thought about having like a public or open API until that conversation. And I was like, well, it makes sense, but it never
Never
like,
happened.
I was like, it never like, entered my mind. Honestly, like Perfect Form was a really cool product. It was just, I wasn't interested enough. That's why I always laugh when people are like, "No, I'm not telling you my idea until you sign an NDA," or like, you know what I mean? Like, "Oh, it's your
Yeah.
$1 million idea." Well, like guys, I have so many $1 million ideas. I'll tell everyone about all of them because you have to love them probably more than I love them to even make it $1 million idea.
Yep, yep, yep. And I think the same way, like, cause like generally people are, I wouldn't say lazy. They don't follow through. So even if you like tell somebody your idea, they're not gonna follow through. They're not gonna go,
No.
like invest the not even the money, just the time, the sweat equity to be able to like push a product out. So I do laugh as well when somebody tell me like you gotta sign an NDA because
Yeah.
I'm not gonna. I have a million other things I'm worried about
Well, like
to try and like
honestly,
build your application.
like even if I was currently working on my $1 million idea and I would tell other people what I'm working on, and even if they wanted to build the same thing, I'd probably be okay with that. Because
Yeah,
like either you're gonna be way better at it than me and be successful, or you're not gonna take it off the ground. And
yeah.
like it's more likely you're not gonna do anything with it. But like, yeah, when I was running my consultancy HGA, like so many people. One, everyone wanted to offer me equity instead of paying me, and I was like, no, that's not how it works. I mean, we can work on a deal that includes equity, but and then they also wanted to sign NDAs because everyone thought that they had their unicorn idea. And like, I get it; it's exciting when you have a really good idea, but like the likeliness it's original and doesn't already exist is like very small.
hmm Um, on the consulting piece as well. So somebody recently reached out to me, and so he follows me on social media, and he reached out. He was like, "Hey, man, I'm interested in what you do, but I ask everybody this. I ask everybody, what's their superpower?" And he really made me think about like what if I had a superpower in this industry, engineering, like what would it be? Um, and looking at the different rapid prototyping, as you would call it, or POCs that I've done, I told them I'm able to help a company or a startup go from ideation to proof of concept in about 30 days. So like if
Hmm.
you need a prototype or MVP, I can do it in 30 days. And that's like focusing on like infrastructure using like cloud native tools, and then the different scaffold that I put together for front ends, and be able to put that together and be like, okay, cool, this is what you need. Now we can like go into market, test it out, get your data that you need to figure out, okay, is this actually a viable product you should continue to be, spending money on, or either are worth pursuing, or maybe you have these features, but then now the data is telling you these are the features that users really want. So now you can like cut out 90% of what you thought the user would want to actually building what's right for the market.
Hmm. Well, so the only reason I know this now is because I've learned from mistakes and not listening to others. But like getting that feedback loop as fast as possible is so important. Like, Perfect Form was a good example. I built a ton of heavy features that, I pretty much like heads down built for 8 months.
Mm.
And like hindsight, that was a mistake. I should have like figured out like the one to three features that I needed to have my MVP, right? And then get those one to three features into the hands of fitness coaches and clients, right? And then start building features that they want instead of
Mhm.
features that I think they want. Like I built it from the aspect of features that I want, which is a good place to start, but it doesn't mean that those are the features that will make your product.
Yep, yep, yep.
And so like
Yeah.
I'm always like, take that list. I don't care if it's 100 things that you think you absolutely need to launch with. You need to whittle that down to like 5 things max and figure out how to
Mhm.
make it work.
Yeah, like the concept of, before, the concept of build it and then they'll come, that concept doesn't work
It,
that well. I've
it's
built,
weird. If it worked, I would be like on a yacht somewhere because I've built some really cool products that no one's ever used.
yep, 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 me too.
So yeah, if you build it, they will not come.
Yep,
Which is
yep.
then you start trying to learn marketing, sales, and all of that stuff. And dude, I appreciate the skills and the talent that it takes to be those people, but I've also accepted I'm not that person.
Yep, yep, me too.
I'm a builder, and don't partner with people that are also your same skill set because you'll just build something really awesome that no one uses. Like
Hmm.
Ben Kimball and I are both like very engineer brained minds, and we did a podcast for a while together called Big App Energy. But like our
Yep.
problem was we're both good at building things, and both of us suck at selling. So always find someone that's really good at selling or something other than what your skill set is, and then you'll be golden.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I think one person that's common to us is Mark Price. He changed his name, his last name,
I
but
think he's back to Mark
Walmart.
Price these days. I don't know
Oh,
though.
okay, okay,
I haven't spoken to him in a while, but yeah, Mark Price. He was
okay,
the
okay.
CEO of DevSlopes.
Yeah, so I think that's the first person that I've come across, and we did a podcast back then, so right around the pandemic. But I think he has that mindset where he's like very engineer focused, but then also like a marketer and also
Yeah.
like a salesman. Like I'm like I couldn't do it. Like I don't know how he was able to like I don't know
Yeah,
like.
he's all of them. He has that gift. And like the people
Mhm,
that have it, you guys are lucky. And like I'm not saying I couldn't have it, but like going back to I'm really lazy. And like sales is hard work. It's just like boots
yeah.
on the ground and you just have to push forward no matter like if you don't reach out to 100 people today, you're not going to get your 1%
Yeah, it's
kickback,
not like you
right?
can automate selling.
Yeah. No, you can't because like look at LinkedIn. All the automated messages you get, do any of them work on you? They don't work on me.
No,
I just
no,
end up
no.
blocking people and removing them as connections. Like, nope.
Hmm.
Sorry, bro. So maybe someday it will be a talent that I'll take the time, but I don't think it will be. I just love putting my head down and building stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Same here.
In fact, like recently, I've had a fun little side project where I've built like a web scraper for it scrapes basically like Amazon products and puts stats together for basically like the Amazon influencer program. If you I've never done it, but one of my buddies does it, and so I made Amazon like extension for him, and it basically like takes all the product data in the page, puts it in like a readable, useful area for you to know if it's a good product to review or not, and it's
Mm.
pretty cool. Web scraping is it's an interesting art, and it's
Yeah,
kind of
I'm
fun though.
curious. What are you using? What are you using to web scrape? I used to do that back in the day with Phantom JS.
Okay, so I started doing it just really ghettoly from the extension itself. So I was just grabbing, whatever doc loaded, right? I was just grabbing the HTML and pattern matching, pulling out the data from there. But since then, I just recently started using Crawley for
Mhm.
Elixir. And then, shoot, what is the parsing? One second. It's like Floki. Floki Elixir. Come on. Yeah, Floki, which is wait. It basically just like allows you to like perform queries on raw HTML so you can like grab the tags that you need. So I started using Crawley, which, grabs the URL data, and then Floki to kind of parse it. And then I took it all to my back end, launched it to DigitalOcean, and I kind of expected this would happen, right? Like anytime you host any kind of bot activity, like scraping, whatever it is, like Amazon or Microsoft, like all those big companies, most websites, they'll block you, right? They'll do like the CAPTCHA thing and like prove you're not a robot. So I ended up using Oxylab's proxy, which now I just constantly rotate through residential IPs. And
Mm.
so so like as people visit products, I scrape it on the back end, return the data, and then once it's scraped, I keep that data and I don't right now I haven't decided if I'm going to expire it in a week or a month. But basically, I don't re-scrape that product once it's scraped and stored, and then I can instantly just return it, and it's pretty
Gotcha.
cool. The back end stuff, like I'm more comfortable writing in Elixir these days than JavaScript, so
Hmm.
I have made it's a lot faster for me. And like honestly, you'd rather have that heavy lifting on your back end because then you don't have to push out, extension updates and things like that when you want to just change the way you're scraping data. Because like we all know websites like they'll change things a lot. So things will just break. And now I can just make a tweak to my back end, push it to my server. Things work again for the extension.
Okay, okay.
But it's that dang proxy though. So if you're hosting off of, not off your own residential IP, you'll probably get blocked.
Mm.
So I think like Oxy Labs, it'll cost like $1.50 or something for 1,000 product pages to be scraped, which I don't think is horrible.
Yeah, yeah, that's a pretty good deal.
Yeah.
Mm. So when you deploy on DigitalOcean, are you just deploying that one droplet, or is it like multiple droplets, where you have like like a containerized application that creates
Yeah.
different apps
Yeah.
that could
So
scale out.
I use Docker for everything, but I'll like set up, the YAML file. So like Postgres gets a container, Nginx gets a container, certbot, I think that's what it's called. Certbot gets it, and then, my Phoenix application, my backend.
Okay, okay, nice.
But I am going to be transferring over to batteries included and giving that a little test flight because I think that will make my life a lot easier. Because I don't want to be a
Okay.
DevOps guy. Like I hack my way through DevOps. I don't enjoy
Yeah.
it. It works, but I don't really like doing it. And like then when you start like having to like node balance and things like that, and increasing and decreasing instances depending on traffic, those are just things I don't want to have to worry about.
Mm-hmm. But nowadays you can also like set up like auto scaling, right? To be able
For
to,
sure. Yeah.
based on traffic, it would scale
Yeah.
down. Mm.
Yeah. Which I have never had to really like think about. Like I've never had projects, like at least personal projects, leave a single droplet, like because
Mm.
I just haven't had that much traffic. So it's really not a problem I have to worry about yet, but we'll see. I'm learning about it at Collects though. I'm a backend engineer there, and I think they just hit like 3 million users, and we have like some crazy, like we have like 300,000 daily active users, which is insane. So I'm learning
Mm.
all about, well, I shouldn't say, I'm learning about the issues of scaling and what they have to be done. I haven't really gotten my hands dirty yet, but it's pretty cool. It's a cool problem to
Okay, okay.
have to solve.
What system are they deployed on?
uh Kubernetes, yeah.
Oh, okay, okay, okay.
Yeah.
Huh. AWS or Azure?
uh Google.
Google Cloud.
Yeah,
Google
Google
Cloud.
Cloud.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, that's the other part of my world at NetJets. So prior to joining NetJets, I had like a handful of hands-on experience with AWS. Like I work with S3 buckets, work with like Lambda functions, but nothing like at a crazy scale. Just because the nature of my work, I was a consultant at you heard of ThoughtWorks?
I feel like I have, but I might have only heard of it because it's on your LinkedIn.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, so ThoughtWorks is a consultant company based out of Chicago, and it's was founded by Martin Fowler, which if you are into like the Agile Manifesto, he's one of the names on the Agile Manifesto. But they pride themselves in extreme programming, where like you build the application, you write tests, and it's self-automated testing. Like it's highly it's an application that's built by a highly mature team, right? So when I was there, I had some hands-on, but with AWS, but it was like so brief because like you're on a project for 3 months, you can't learn everything about that system like
Hmm.
AWS in like 3 months. So now I'm always changing to different like teams, and they may be using AWS or Azure or Google Cloud. So always changing pace, and that's one of the things that I like about consulting. You get to learn about so many like technical pieces, like, oh, I've never really thought about this before. And you get to work with a lot of people that are way smarter than you. And now you start thinking like, oh man, like I could be doing this like that. Okay, cool. Now you're incorporating that in your future projects. Just to bring this back to like at NetJets, now I'm like working on AWS, and that knowledge that I had from ThoughtWorks like helped me scale to like working with um, continue working with S3s, Lambdas, API Gateway, Kubernetes, standing up ECS clusters, and etc. So, but yeah, like it's good experience on the AWS
Yeah,
side.
well, and like the more things that you know exists, the more you know you don't know.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
I'm reminded every
That is
day
true.
how little I know, but at least I like I'm learning something new daily because of that, which is wild, right? Like I remember like probably honestly at the beginning of my software career, like once it kind of clicked and I could build something. I'm not saying I could build it well, but I thought I could. That was probably, the top of that Dunning-Kruger curve,
Yeah.
top of Mount Stupid. I was real cocky, thought I knew everything.
Yeah.
And now I'm still recovering from the fall and I feel like I don't know anything at all.
Yeah. Um, that brings me, so I remember when I did that. So my first ever game I released, I was using user defaults to store like the user score, right? But that's for like being able to persist it when they come back. And but then I thought, okay, cool. If I'm using user defaults at that time, I'm like, okay, if I'm using user defaults, like everyone should be able to see like the scores, and I'm gonna, take the scores, put it into like a table. And I'm like, man, I can only do that with my score. So then I started learning about, okay, how do I persist this elsewhere? But good thing, around that time, I think I had learned about Game Center, where you can like store your score
Mm,
using the GK framework. And then now when the Game Center, you put in your ID, you store your score. Now everyone can be able to like see it like around the globe. So, but yeah, like I didn't, I just knew user defaults was gonna allow me to like share it out to everybody.
just like your magical database that
Yeah.
is somehow accessible everywhere. That's awesome. That's so funny. I'm trying to think. Well, I remember too, like dev slips, we went really heavy on like using Firebase because it was easy to get up and running. And it kind
Mhm.
of acted like a database, right? Without having to build a back end. So we could build a lot of cool tutorial projects. But like I was convinced that, Firebase was the best way to go. Like it's scalable, all these things. Like I don't think I could build any applications on Firebase anymore. Like unless you're like
Yeah, yeah,
persisting like very simple data, I would not even consider using it.
yeah, yeah. It's good for rapid prototyping,
Yeah,
but
yep,
it's not good
exactly.
for if I'm gonna release something that's gonna like I think okay, if I was building like TikTok or Instagram, I wouldn't use Firebase at all.
Yeah. No, it wouldn't be good. I have a buddy that works for a company. I think he's actually getting them off of it. But for like the last like 5 years, he was like just doing patchwork on a really crappily architected app, and it was all using Firebase. And like we're
Mm,
talking about like an app where like the company was making really good money through it, and you're like,
mhm.
I'm just shocked it
Wow.
works. But like all he was doing was chasing his tail, fixing bugs, and I think he's just finally like I think he might have just rebuilt something and like did a lot of it using Elixir and Postgres for the back end, which is a lifesaver.
Yeah, I think where it get like yeah, it's good for rapid prototyping. I think where you go wrong is when you actually embed those SDKs into your application. Now you're stuck with vendor lock-in.
Hmm.
You can't really shift to like use a different product or backend just because now you're tied to the Firebase SDK or a Google
Right.
SDK. Those things should be more at the backend layer, where if you on the back end, if you wanted to toggle a feature flag to be able to go to a different source, you can do that, but not at the client layer. That's
Right.
really
It should
bad.
be like a module or a service that you can use, not use, remove and replace. But like,
Hmm.
yeah, over like that's kind of like I have never really dove into the whole AWS, whatever you would call it, monolith of microservices, just
Hmm.
because I don't like the idea of vendor lock-in because like I I could be completely wrong, but I feel like the leveraging of microservices is like not as popular as it used to be. I know they're like obviously it's still used a lot, but I feel like it's maybe less of a popular route to
When you
go.
say microservers, you're talking
Like my
about,
well, like yeah,
can
like
you define that?
the whole AWS ecosystem, right? Where you just like use their microservices, whether you're using Lambda, um, the like what is it, DynamoDB, all these things where they're
Mhm.
just like really easy to tie into and lock into, but you don't really like spin up your own instances. You're
Mm.
tied through AWS. That's kind of what I mean. Like versus like the monolith, like where I just have a Phoenix application and I have my Postgres database. Like that's kind of what I mean by that.
Gotcha. Okay, okay. Yeah, so I think that you bring up a good concern. So most companies now are thinking about how can I be multi-cloud, where if I am on AWS and I would say it depends. Yeah, I would say it depends on the application and the use case, right? So you can go cloud native, which is using like API gateway, Lambdas, S3s. These are like specific to that cloud provider.
Hmm.
But then when you head to like Google's platform, you have like G functions, right? Or Google Cloud Functions. Those
Yeah,
are
their
like
their version
the
of
equivalent.
Lambda.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yep, yep. So if you're tied to those systems, then yes, you are like at the infrastructure level, you are tied to those, but the underlying code that runs, it's your code. It can be,
Right, right.
Java, like you can deploy it anywhere. But then that's where the people are using like Terraform to be able to be multi-cloud ready, where
Hmm.
I can tweak up my infrastructure as code and then deploy to a different cloud provider. So if AWS were to go down, now I can just shift over to Azure or Google with just a few tweaks to my infrastructure.
Yeah, that is nice. I do. Terraform is on one of my a million tabs open of things that I want to look into
Yeah,
because it looks like a good tool to learn for sure.
yeah, yeah, definitely. I've been diving into it. I've created modules for Terraform. So just because, like, it goes back to speed of thought, right? I've done something, and then now I'm like, okay, I have to do this thing again instead of copying and pasting. Let me just create a module, and that module now I can pull out that module, and then um, provide my configurations, and then run it, and
Hmm.
then everything gets deployed out. So.
That's nice. What you explain to me what a module is for someone that has never been in Terraform? Is it like kind of like base settings for deployment, like a YAML file essentially?
No, so a module is it would probably be like a class. So you have a class that you initialize, and then when part of that initialization, you need to pass in arguments, and those arguments feed into your functions that then
Okay.
configure the actual resources.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I'm all about simplicity. So that's reusable for multiple projects, or would it be just slightly tweaked?
No, that's reusable for any project, depending on what you're doing. So if you need to like,
So like on DigitalOcean, I have like Ubuntu droplets, right? And
mhm.
I have, like my saved configuration for it, and I spin up my default server that's already like set up for a firewall and all that, like kind of the same concept there. And then like
Yeah,
Docker's installed and
yeah, yeah, you can do that as well with Terraform.
okay.
Yeah.
All right, nice. Yeah, see, I have to I'm too manual sometimes. I need to start embracing automation.
Yeah.
I write a lot of my own automation and then I always shy away from like the platforms
Other
because I'm like
people's
I don't want to be
automation.
I don't want to be tied into your automation. uh,
Yeah, I think another tool in that area would probably be like Ansible. Ansible does the
mm,
same thing, where you
okay,
can
yep.
like spin up things from different environments and configure like a EC2 or a droplet, etc.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. I need to work on my DevOps and deployment skills. I'm
Do
very
you use GitHub
rudimentary.
and GitHub Actions or
I do use GitHub Actions. Yeah. Yeah.
okay?
Like usually just to like run my tests, and some projects I have auto deployment on, and then others I still like to manually push the button just because I don't know. It just depends on the project.
Okay, yeah, yeah. I'm surprised that most companies are not using GitHub at the enterprise level or just the use of GitHub because it removes a lot of like the DevOps
It really
ceremonies.
does. Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
it's
So like
nice.
most
It's
companies are still on Jenkins, like on-prem, etc.
oh dude, I remember I have a very like short-lived experience with Jenkins, but it was Jenkins with deploying like iOS apps. And dude,
Oof.
the hoops that Apple makes you run through for like, just certificates and like
Hmm.
all that crap. And then like to keep it like once they expire, then you have to like you forgot how you set everything up in Jenkins, and you're like, shoot, how do I add my new cert? And then it takes
Yep,
a
yep,
half a day to get Jenkins working again. But it's not a Jenkins problem, it's an Apple problem for sure.
yep, yep, yep. Um, so as you're talking about like certificates on iOS and how like the managing hell it is, um, so I've used Fastlane to be able to help with that,
Mm.
specifically Match because they have like cert inside to be able to handle that. But I think the drawback with those is you actually need like somebody who is on the who have like permissions to pull and create certificates like on the developer console. With Match, you only need one person that has that permission, and then they store it inside like a repository, whether it be like GitHub or S3 bucket. But then now your engineering team's able to pull your certificates and provision profiles from a Git repository and
Oh,
install
that's
it on the
nice.
machine. Yeah, so now it's easier for
Yeah.
onboarding for CI/CD. Where I'm going with that is I'm so Fastlane was written in Ruby or is written in Ruby. I like Ruby, but I kind of want to learn Rust. So I'm like, okay, cool. Let me write my own version of Fastlane in Rust. So if
Yeah, that's
anyone's
the
out
best way
there
to
and
learn,
they're
right?
yeah, if anyone's out there listening and they want to tackle this project with me, it's just a thought right now at this point. But I want to rewrite Fastlane using Rust.
Okay. I feel like I don't know, like are you involved in the Rust community at all? They're
No,
pretty loud and
no,
noisy and active. You should
really.
yeah, you should I don't know where they hang out, but
But
I always see the snippets of drama that's happening in the Rust community, and I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna avoid that.
or we can write it in Elixir.
Hey, there we go. Now, see, now you got my attention, and probably everyone listening, they're like, hey,
Yeah.
all right, let's write Fastlane and Elixir. Let's do it. That'd be fun.
How
Sheldor.
fast is Elixir?
I mean, what do you mean? How
So
fast?
like so if I had a function that runs like how fast can it compile? Is it a compiled language? It is, right?
Yeah. Well, so it depends. So it's going to work a lot better on like Linux and Mac boxes than Windows.
Windows. Okay.
Um, and I'm not smart enough to understand all that stuff. I just have been told that stuff. Um, but like what's nice with Elixir is basically the false concept in JavaScript of like multi-threads and like
Mm,
being able to do simultaneous things all at once with like the Beam VM in the background. You basically have the same concept but in like individual processes, and
okay.
it's like so efficient. You can have like millions of processes going, all doing different things, and then all you can communicate with message passing. And if one process crashes, it doesn't take down the whole system. That that process or its supervisor will handle that crash however you have it set up. It could just be rebooting it, it could be killing it, it could be wiping out a whole bunch of processes and starting them all back up. It could be a lot of things. So basically, like Erlang is what basically Elixir is the modern syntax of Erlang, right? It's built
Mhm.
on top of it, so you have access to all of Erlang under the hood. But it was developed by Ericsson, for telecommunications in 1986. And the only reason I always remember that year is just because it's a year younger than me. um, but like, so it was made for telecommunications and like, the old way of phone calls and all of that. Like, you can't have one dropped phone call take down your entire system. And so that
Mhm.
was the whole kind of like the fault tolerance ideology behind it.
Gotcha. So it is multi-threaded and can handle asynchronous operations, and it's not as
Well, it's
no
processes, right? So
processes. Okay, okay,
yeah, yeah. But yeah,
okay.
asynchronous processes and yeah, and then you can leverage like long run processes. So like we have things called gen servers,
Mhm.
which is just like a long lived process that can just so like Elixir is immutable, right? So we don't have the issue of like sharing state or having race conditions really, because
Mm,
you're just transforming whatever value you're passing through your functions, right? So you're not changing it in another place. You're
mhm,
only um, transforming it where it is. But like, so our version, like if we needed state, so like I built a fun, like little game server once and you need to maintain like a user state. So like user score, a game state, like what users are playing, do you keep track of all the user scores in one place? And so you can have these long running tasks that basically you can have it maintain state in a long running task, but it's really just like a loop. So when you're updating something, it just gets passed into the process again. And it's like,
mhm.
an infinite loop until you end the process kind of thing. So it's kind of a different way of thinking, but I think it kind of forces you to write a lot cleaner code because you don't have the concept of singletons and like sharing state and like I feel like a lot of practices that end up being used improperly in like OOP, you can't even do it in a functional language.
Mm,
I feel like I
yeah.
rambled, but maybe that made some
No, no,
sense.
I like that. Yeah. And I like the concept of functional programming as well, where you're not, passing a reference to the object where it's mutable, where, it stays
Right.
immutable. Like if you create a new object and you pass it through wherever you need to create it, where pass it through. You were about to say, did somebody write something in the chat
Oh
or
yeah, we got a comment and someone asked like the best way to deploy. Sheldor asked the best way to deploy Elixir Phoenix apps, and then and then we got Rogerio. Sorry guys, I butcher names because I'm just too American for my own good. But he goes, for me, it was Jenkins and Docker. For some SaaS that it makes it easier to deploy. So for deploying applications, I love just writing my own like using Docker Compose, writing my own Docker YAML files, and then spinning it up on like a digital ocean droplet, but it's not ideal for a lot of reasons, right? If you don't want to think about it, if you don't want to think about scaling and stuff, you have like Vercel and Gig Elixir is a good one. And it like, especially for like Phoenix specific, they have very specific just configuration that works really easily with Phoenix apps. So I would check out those routes. It's not Vercel, is it? It is. Where does Chris McCord work? One second, guys. My Fly.io. That's what I was. So Fly.io and Gig Elixir are great options because they're kind of built for Elixir applications. And I'm trying to think. And then I would check out batteries included. I just had Elliot on a week or two ago, and that looks really promising. So there are a lot of options out there. And it doesn't have to be too hard. Like if you leverage tools, it doesn't have to be a scary thing. Because I know like a lot of times, we're just developers and DevOps engineering is a career path. Like if you've ever met like just a DevOps guy, they are some of the smartest people I've ever known. Because I feel like they have to know their hardware and their software, and things can't break when they touch things. So I'm not that guy. I hack my way through DevOps and hope it works.
It works on my machine, right?
Exactly. Just like your what is it? Your user config, your user settings.
Yep, yep.
It works on my machine.
User
Why can't you?
defaults.
Yeah, why can't you see my score? I remember, like, if you want to go way back when I first started learning like Xcode, right? And storyboards. I hate storyboards.
Oh
I'm so
man,
glad that what is the new thing that came out?
SwiftUI.
SwiftUI, yes.
Hmm.
So like I was just like I basically hung up my coat for Swift development right as SwiftUI was released, but I was using another tool that was very similar where you basically it's like a markdown language of some sort instead of the click and drag nightmare of storyboards. But like that was the worst part, storyboards, because things never worked the way you wanted them to, right? Like you had it pinned everywhere you wanted it, but it still wouldn't like show up right when you
Yeah.
ran the simulator.
Yep. Yep. So storyboards work well when you're like when you're on a team that's just you.
Oh,
Just because.
dude, I remember merge conflicts,
Yep.
dude.
Yep. Yep.
Uh,
So they work well when it's only just you. And then I never had any problems with it unless I was on a big team. Just because I like the auto layout features, where you can you pin your constraints, etc., to the
mhm.
lead in or trailing view. Um, but then what I love most about like iOS development was the zip files, because now those zip files you are only working on your own zip file. So now like no merge conflicts really, or little to no merge conflicts. But Swift UI, it's crazy. It is crazy. I still think Apple has some work to do, particularly around like state management and the views. Because I was recently working on a application I was using Swift UI, and it had some state with it. And the thing is, every time um, the component or the view was re-rendering, my state left with it. So then I had to figure out, okay, how do I make this work? I forgot what I did, but I got it to work eventually.
Nice.
But yeah, so,
I don't even remember. It's been so long since I've opened Xcode and actually wrote an iOS app. But I'm trying to think like, what do they even call the transition functions from view to view, where you can like pass arguments and state through? Do you know what I'm talking about?
um, yeah, the segues when
Yeah,
you would create a
segues. Yeah,
segue,
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
See, it's been so long since I've done any mobile
yeah,
app work. It's kind of insane, but yeah, segues. That's right. I
yeah.
remember for the life of me when I first started programming. And do you remember Jack Davis from DevSlopes?
No,
Oh, dude, I love Jack. So he's in Missouri, and he was helping us build the DevSlopes apps like in his free time on the side, right? Because
okay.
he's like a bigwig at like a power co-op company doing like crazy fiber projects and things.
Yeah.
But I remember when I first started learning, he was like a big part of the community, and I just could not figure out how to like segue from view to view. I was like, I want these options to follow me to this view, right? Like
Yeah.
I just like couldn't figure it out, and he helped me figure it out. And I feel like it was like such a like a eye-opening experience for me. I was like, I can finally be a real developer. And this is before
Yeah.
I even understood. I didn't even know what APIs were yet, you know?
Wow. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't even know what interfacing with like a back end meant yet. I was just building like front end apps that really didn't do anything, but look
Gotcha.
like calculators essentially, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Who
that was
runs
the
DevSlopes now?
I don't know. I'm not going to say anything nice though if I talk too much
Oh,
about it.
okay. I would like. I wanted to like at in the early stages. I wanted to be a contributor, but I don't know. That opportunity never like presented itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really like where we were headed when, it was like the old school team, right? And
Hmm.
I feel like we had good purpose, and now it's just like some douchebag
Oh, man, I
is
don't
the
know.
new CEO. I
Okay.
I
Okay.
haven't really interfaced with him much other than like very a-hole conversations where he was trying to like basically screw the whole founding team out of shares and things. Yeah.
Oh wow. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
The
So
only people I remember is you, Mark. Who else?
we had
A
Johnny B.
mechanical, yeah, mechanical engineer or aerospace
Yeah, that
engineer.
was Johnny B. And then we had Evan, who is our UI UX designer.
Okay, what about the teacher turned engineer?
Caleb.
Caleb, yes, yes,
Yeah.
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 It was a fun team. And then we had Nate. Uh, Nate
I
was
know Nate.
Mark's brother-in-law. And then we had
Okay, okay,
why am I blanking? Jason, Nate's brother.
okay, okay. Hmm.
Oh, and
Maybe we
Pearson.
should start.
Pearson was like real OG.
Okay,
He was
okay.
like
Maybe we should start some.
Kickstarter to start something.
Yes.
Maybe. I don't know. You know what I found? I tried to sell a course. I did a whole like Elixir introductory course, and I was like selling it, and I got burned out, and I ended up hating making the material. And
Mm,
then I ended up like getting everyone that bought it. Everyone was fine with me releasing it to YouTube, and now it's out on YouTube. And I just enjoy content creation so much more when I'm not like, there's no expectation. I can just make content whenever I want, and I'm not on the hook.
mm.
So I just like having free content. And like, if I feel like making content, I can. If I don't feel like making content, I don't have to.
Okay,
And
okay,
like,
yeah,
I don't,
yeah.
I don't know. I have a couple buddies that have good YouTube channels, and they're trying to do like the paid course route. And I think it can work out. I think it can be really good. I don't know if it's for me.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I
yeah.
do like I love making stuff and sharing what I know, because I do feel like it's really helpful. And I'm in the middle of planning an Ash framework tutorial like series. It'll be like, I don't know how many videos it'll be yet. It might be like 10 videos, but I'm going to use Ash framework, which is like it's a DSL, kind of like a wrapper to Elixir, and it kind of just helps
Mm,
you create like schemas and CRUD functions at a lot faster pace. And it's actually, it really goes hand in hand with like rapid prototyping. Like I think it's
okay,
a
okay.
it's a really cool tool to use when you're like just want to build admin panels and tooling really fast.
Mm,
You get your proof of concept out the door really quickly. And Zach Daniels is just there. He's always making new tools that work with it. Like he just shared, he made like Ash AI. So it's an LLM that just knows how to develop an Elixir and Ash. So it's really cool. I have to check it out. So I want to now incorporate that into my little mini series. But I feel like just making like mini series with tools to help people build products that they want to build is like kind of what I want to make material on. Like less about like I don't need to teach you computer science, but I can teach you how to build something and maybe where to look for the computer science. Like cuz I don't think you should write off the nitty-gritty of like bookwork and understanding what you're doing. But I
Hmm.
also think in today's world, like especially if we're watching LLMs get better and better at writing our code, it means teams are going to be smaller and smaller. I don't think engineers will be replaced
Hmm.
by, at least like not now, not in the near future. But I do think it means that teams are smaller and you're going to be leveraging AI a lot more. So I think
Hmm.
to position yourself to own a product that can make you money and keep your own development team small is the way to go. And I think like leveraging frameworks like Ash is like a smart way to do that. Like build
Yeah.
quickly, build efficiently, and just get your product out the door. And then boom, have your product, make your money. And then that's the way of the future.
Yeah, I fall into that same bucket of thinking. Like I also don't think AI will replace engineers, but I think it will replace some. um, at least junior and associate level, maybe mid level. But
Yeah.
then when it comes to like that senior and lead engineer role, you need to be able to leverage AI to be able to, fast prototyping, rapid prototyping, but then you have to double check what the model is actually writing, because
Oh yeah, because
sometimes
it'll
they
hallucinate
could,
and just make shit
yeah,
up.
yep, yep, and sometimes it could introduce security holes into your application because you don't know where it's learning all of this like information from, and like you
Mhm.
have
It's
bad
learning from
actors.
Stack Overflow, which is terrifying.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think, yeah, teams are going to be smaller, but then the job of the engineer is to, just code review what's been generated and see if it's good or you need to make some tweaks.
Yeah, I agree. I have brought this up before, and I would love like your take on it because you mentioned you see the roles of like junior and entry level engineers like disappearing, right? Because
Mhm.
even in the current state of things, like if you're looking for a job, a lot of them are like, we want senior level, senior level, senior level, which we're already like seeing these trends, right? And we're also already seeing a lot of developers getting laid off from like larger FANG companies and just companies in general, which is sad. You don't ever want to see that. But what do we do? How do we replace senior engineers if senior engineers are never training junior engineers?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, um, so how do we get that experience to be a senior engineer
Hmm.
if we never get the chance?
Well, and I even like looking at it from my perspective, I'm like quote unquote a senior engineer, right?
Mhm.
I learn from the engineers I work with daily. So like I'm always learn like I feel like, they're like senior is a weird label, but there's just like tiers of education or tiers of skills, right? So you never have
Mhm.
them all. You could be in different pools of skills. You could be behind someone slightly, or you know what I mean? Like you're always climbing a ladder of skills.
Yep, yep, yep. I don't know. Right now, I don't have a good answer for that.
I
I'll
think it's
just
a
say,
terrifying thought though.
yeah, yeah, it is. Huh.
Because like it
So,
almost like you almost have to encourage companies, whether they feel like they need them or not, you have to hire that junior and put him in situations where he's over his head and he's going to learn and he can still be mentored by a more senior level engineer than him.
mhm. Yeah, but unfortunately, that's not how I see the market going.
Right. But then you have, capitalism at work, right? And
Yep,
you
yep.
you you want to make as much profit as you can without paying extra
Hmm.
heads in your company.
But then now that senior or that lead, they're gonna become like over compensated,
Mm,
and they'll start playing that game where, okay, this company is paying me this, but I've been doing this for 2 3 years. I can go here and get, 2 times more than
yeah.
here because
Well,
I
I
am
mean,
a senior.
that's already a game that we're forced to play in the software world. Like I feel like especially if you're in startups, a lot of times that's the only way you get a raise is hopping around, right? What will be interesting though is if you're cutting your teams down to like one or two senior devs per like project or whatever you might be doing, what do you do when one leaves like and transitions aren't clean? Like imagine inheriting a code base and infrastructure and DevOps deployment strategies without anyone showing you what's there.
Yeah,
That would be
that's
hard.
that's that's a scary thought. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe we get to the point where AI is our new overlords, and they don't even want us touching the code because they write better code than us. So
That's true. Like, why are you clicking around? You're so
yeah,
slow. I don't even have to open the file to change it.
yeah. Man,
I don't know. Interesting times. Ride the wave, build products, and I don't know. I feel like you kind of have to always be in the mentality of being self-sustaining. I mean, being self-sustained is a good idea, anyways, right?
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, the day job, who knows? Stack Overflow AI could replace us.
Yeah, that's a foreseeable future. Maybe
I
20
don't know.
years from now.
Yeah, maybe. You always see there's some crazy people on the internet though that think AI is already like everywhere and lying to people, and I was like, I don't think it's there.
Yeah, it's not there.
I would be way more
But
impressed with the code generation if it was.
yeah, but I am excited about OpenAI and the partnership or bringing on Jovi. I think it's John, the senior UX for Apple. So he recently left and joined OpenAI. Um, I do think AI is going to get to that point where they're building products like robots, um,
Oh, Johnny, is it
like
Johnny Ive?
Johnny Ive. Yes, yes. So building products, maybe like like when you were watching the Jetstones, you have like a robot nanny or a cook or a chef. I think we're at the age
You know
where
what you
in the
just
next
said?
10
You said
years, uh,
Jetstones. You mixed
Flintstones and Jets.
Flintstones and Jets. What is that show called?
Uh,
Jet skis, jet. What is it called? Oh my,
yeah, I
Jetsons.
forget the Jetsons. Okay, okay, okay. Yeah, yeah,
Oh, that's
yeah.
funny.
But I see in the next 5 to 10 years, like we're gonna have AI robots in our homes, whether it be walking our dogs, to like cooking us meals, um, watching kids, taking kids to school, maybe even like teaching our kids too, where you're gonna have like a few minimal interactions with humans. I do see that in the near future.
That's kind of terrifying. Like, I
Yeah,
agree. I think we'll see that, but I don't know if I like that.
yeah, yeah. Well, we'll start the resistance.
I mean, don't get me wrong, like a little like housekeeper robot that can just
Yeah,
like keep my shit clean. That sounds amazing. And then like cook me meals. Sounds
yeah,
amazing. Like I'll take that, but that's where
yeah,
I want it to stop.
yeah. So we'll see. I
Well,
wish we could like mint this, what I just said, like put it on the blockchain, so that way when it happens, it could be worth, a lot of money.
there we go. Instead, it's just going to be free and accessible on YouTube.
Free and accessible on YouTube.
But all right, Henry, this was awesome. I really enjoyed this conversation. Um, well, I'll have to have you back on once we have you writing more Elixir code in the near
Yeah, we'll
future. All
do
right,
it
you're gonna
with
start.
Fastlane.
You're gonna start prototyping in Elixir, and just it's gonna change your world.
All right, let's see. I'll reach out when that happens.
Awesome. Well, hey, thanks again, man. And like, you're always welcome to come back on. So reach out if you ever want to join me for another conversation. I feel like you're always up to cool stuff. So I love to watch you grow and like speak at conferences, which maybe I'll someday do, but instead I just talk to the internet one way street. That
All
way
right,
I don't
cool.
know if
Thanks,
people
Jacob.
thumbs down me or thumbs up me.
Thumbs up.
It doesn't matter, you know?
Yep, yep. Cool. Thanks, Jacob. Appreciate you as well.
Do,
Thank you for having me on.
yeah, if people want to find you or reach out, where are good places for that?
Yeah, so LinkedIn is a good place. So Henry Saint-Just on LinkedIn. Don't get me confused with my brother. He's also a software engineer, and his name is also Henry Saint-Just. So look at the profile picture to figure out who we are.
Wait, really?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Your parents just really love the name Henry, huh?
They did. Yep, yep. Another place you can find me is Twitter. I am the App Doctor, TheAppdr. And also on Instagram, I go by the App Doctor, fully spelled out, the App Doctor, and then also the Solution Architect, also on Instagram.
Right on. I like the Solution Architect. That's a good one too.
Yeah,
It's
I'm
like
gonna start creating multiple handles.
for real. That's just it's like a really fancy way to say you program.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
I love it. All right. Thanks. Thanks again, man. And thank you everyone that tuned in, and have a good weekend.
Take care.
Testing.